to all. This is Rabbi Sachs of the Chai Center. Welcome to the Chai Academy, where we study. We study together and various topics of interest, primarily Jewish interest, but as we go along, we explore other things as well. Um, there's a host of classes that we have previously done online, whether Zoom or Facebook, and they can be found on the Chai Center's website. So go to thechaicenter.com/academy. So that's thechaicenter.com/academy. And you can find many classes, courses, topics of interest. Hi, Aileen. So we started, this will be the fourth in this course. However, each class is independent of one another, but the course is called Genesis. It basically goes through the creation, the lessons of creation, what is creation, creation versus evolution. So you can catch up on some of this. We are holding day 3. So essentially the first class was a introduction and a little bit of day 1. Second class was day 1. Third class was day 1 and day 2. And now we're holding day 3. So day 3. Day 3 is, so if you remember, day 2 and day 3, by the way, is connected. Because if you remember, on day 2, what God did is, good morning, Marianne. Nice to see you. What God did is that He separated the upper waters from the lower waters. So there was water everywhere, all the way up to the firmament, past the ozone layer, and there was water. And God said, okay, I'm going to separate the waters, and He waters up, waters down, and that was essentially the second day. Now, and we discussed it at length in the previous course. So now day 3 happens. Day 3, there is water in the lower realm. There's water. The water covers the entire earth. There's not, as the Torah tells us, there's not one speck of dry land. So the entire earth was water. Like, I don't know if you saw the movie Waterworld. As far as the eye could see was water, and there was no let up. And so the entire earth was underwater. So God, the commandment of let the waters be gathered. So what happened then was the waters essentially started to gather, and they became deeper in some places very deep, like the Mariana Trench. And then you saw hills, you saw valleys, and you saw the character of the earth. Right? So let the waters gather, and gather they did. However, it tells us in the Midrash that they gathered, and then they a tendency of water, right? Water just moves. So it gathered, and then it covered again. So God said, okay, we need to see dry land permanently. So God on that day created the barrier. I want to talk about this barrier because I don't know if you've ever thought about it before. So if you take the Atlantic Ocean, take the Pacific Ocean, they're really big oceans, right? The Atlantic spans, right? It goes all the way to Europe from the United States, and the Pacific. Oh my goodness, the Pacific goes from west of the United States. It goes all the way to Korea and beyond. I mean, we're talking about a huge expanse of water. And the Pacific, once again, is the deepest water you'll find. I mean, it's 36,000 feet deep. I mean, it's insane. So you have this large body of water. And then you have a beach. So let's say the body of water, we'll just average it out. The body of water is 3,000 miles. And then you have a beach of 30 feet. This is one of the most phenomenal aspects of creation. The water can inundate the world at any time, and sometimes it does with a tsunami. But for the most part, God placed a barrier. It's an invisible wall. We don't see it, but it's a barrier. And the sea, the ocean, that's 3,500 miles, 3,000 miles, only has 15, 20, 30 feet to stop itself. And there's a barrier. If God were to remove that barrier for 1 second, we would have like we had in Thailand, in Phuket, where countless of lives were lost and billions of dollars of damage, etc. Now, can you imagine God? And then it stopped. By the way, then it came, and then that was it. Once it did its damage, there wasn't another one. So can you imagine God just removed the barrier? Just remove that barrier, finished. The world would be inundated once again. So there is this moment to moment command for this barrier to remain in place, so the world should not be inundated with water and clearly death and destruction. So that barrier. So we're taught, the commentaries and the Kabbalists explain. Hey, Susan, the commentary and the Kabbalists explain that on that day, God put barriers into place. It wasn't only for the water, but in general, God placed barriers. How many people, how much suffering there would be, how what is the limits of man's what's the limit of man's creation? What can man do? What can man not do? And on that day, God placed barriers. In fact, there's many different names of God. There's Adonai, there's Elohim, right, etc. There's another one called Shin Dalad Yud, Shaddai. That is the God of barriers. That's the God that basically, that's the energy. It's the same God, but that's the energy that basically says, die means enough. Enough. You can't, I'm not allowing this anymore, or you can't pass anymore. So God placed barriers, and now we also need to place barriers, right? If we're created in the image of God, we need to place barriers. We need to make sure that we have boundaries. Boundaries between ourselves and our kids, boundaries between the spouses, boundaries, mankind, etc. Right? So if you're serious about these boundaries, as an example, you'll never have an affair, because that's crossing a boundary. Right? If a person has an affair and they sleep, even though I don't think any sleep happens, but they sleep with somebody, that's crossing a boundary. If you don't say no to your kids and only say yes to your kids, they have no boundaries. If a teacher doesn't show any discipline and boundary, not going to be. So that's what happened on the third day. God said boundaries. Now, there's a major discussion in Jewish writings and non-Jewish writings is how many continents were there? How many continents? So it seems like it's, and it's not clear, but it seems like that there was one continent, and it was only after the flood, Noah's flood, which was a year's worth of earth on the water, it created different continents, but there was water all over the earth, and it was all over the earth. It was, and at that time there was one continent. Now, if I read this years ago, and I meant to research it prior, but they have found seashells on the top of Mount Everest. So at one point, Mount Everest did have water. Whether it was the water before God created the dry land, or was it by Noah's flood? It's hard to tell, but they have found seashells. So at some point, Mount Everest, right, had seashells on it. The So that was the first thing that God did on the third day of creation. On that Tuesday, there was dry land, and He placed the barriers. But he did something else as well. It says that God caused the grass, the herbage, the trees, anything related to the flowers, etc., to bloom. So on that day, there were apple trees and mango trees and banana bushes. It's not a real tree of banana, right? And there was blueberry bush. And on that day was the day that God created basically anything that grows from the ground. So essentially, fruits, vegetables were created on that day in anticipation of man and animals being created. And so that's the second thing God did. So the first thing He did was He made space for earth, terra firma, and then God made the grass and made the weeds, and He made a lot of weeds where I live. Crabgrass, a tremendous amount of crabgrass. He didn't make any near Yankee Stadium, but He made a lot by my house. And the world looked beautiful. There were meadows, and there were valleys, and there were hills. There was the green lush of the island, and it was just stunning. When God finished, and God said twice it was good. When God separated and caused dry land to appear, He said Kitov, it's good, it's complete, I like it. And then when He made the meadows and the hills and the grass and the trees and the fruits and the vegetables, He said Kitov, it's good, I like it. He said Kitov twice. Monday, the second day of creation, He didn't say it at all. And we discussed that on Monday He was dividing things. Upper waters from lower waters, divide, you go up, you go down, etc. On Tuesday, He created harmony. Tuesday, the first thing He did, right, was to separate. Okay, water, you go here, earth, go here. You both can live in peace. Okay, now, and water, I'm going to give you some nice, beautiful coral. And earth, I'm going to give you some nice, beautiful grass. And they were both happy. And so He said Kitov twice, because He was happy with what He had. Because of this, because God said Kitov twice, that the third day, the Tuesday, is God said Kitov twice. Many people have the custom that they do big things only on Tuesday. For example, you're going to move from one house to the next, you do it on Tuesday. You're going to open up a new business, you wait for Tuesday. Because Tuesday, once again, has this double blessing of Kitov. I know people who, if they're going to have surgery, they wait for Tuesday. They push it off till Tuesday. Doctor said, okay, Monday is good. They say, can you make it Tuesday? Because Tuesday is doubly blessed. Whereas Monday, when God was creating division, God didn't say for it is good at all. And on Tuesday, God said it twice. So that's an interesting topic in itself, that Tuesday is considered an extremely, extremely blessed day. So remember that tomorrow, Tuesday, is a blessed day. I'll tell you something interesting on Tuesday, is that every Tuesday, and you can ask the mail person, every Tuesday the mail is very light. Right? They say Monday people get it, and then Tuesday is its lightest day. And there must be some reason why. I could speculate, but Tuesday is a very, very light mail day traditionally. and it's a known concept. What else is what else is good about Tuesday? Um, well, God created us with nutritional things to eat, right? So um, so um, peace reigned, and beautiful things were created. Now, in in the Torah, it's fascinating because the Torah tells us that when God created the different trees, He made them. This is what it says in the Torah. He made them an orange tree with oranges with orange seed, grape seed, grass seed. So He made seeds to be exactly like them. The Torah is very opposed to grafting, to take two different species and putting them together. The Torah, for example, in the Torah, you're not allowed to make a mule. You're allowed to use a mule to carry heavy stuff, but to mix the seed between a horse and I don't know what, a donkey, you get a mule. You're not allowed to do it. Someone did it, and it's a done fact. You can use the mule. And we see this on and on again. God doesn't like mixed seeds. So even agriculturally, when you plant, and you're planting, you're planting this vegetable, you have to be a couple of feet away, or at least 6 inches away, I believe, is the minimum, where you plant some other type of vegetable. You can't do it one on top of the other. You can't create a mixture of seeds. So according to the Torah, a Jew is not allowed to make a grapefruit or make a tangelo. We're allowed to eat the grapefruit. Grapefruit may not be a mix. I really don't know this stuff. But a tangelo is a mixture of an orange and a tangerine. You can't do it. You can benefit from it. You can eat it. But you're not allowed to do the mixing. You're not allowed to take wood from one tree and graft it into another tree. We're not allowed to do any of that. We're not allowed to, bestiality is out. We're not allowed to mix seeds. You're right, and God wanted the very opposed to intermarriage. Once again, that's a mixing of seeds. So you see, there's a consistency. There's a consistency that no mixing. And here, God said, I created the grapeseed. You don't have to figure it out. You can grow the grapeseed. You can grow the grapeseed so the grape can grow, and don't mix it with anything else. So you can play around with the genetics and make it stronger, make it so that I don't think there's a problem with. But mixing seed is an issue in general in the Torah, right? The Torah doesn't like us to mix wool and linen. Torah doesn't like us, and we don't know the reason why. But you see, kind of God likes clarity. He doesn't like gray matter. You shouldn't have a horse and a cow plow together because one's stronger than the other, and you're mixing apples with oranges. You can't do that. So God seems to be likes things very orderly, and likes things very systematic, if you will, and it's a big issue because farmers like to graft, farmers like to, the obligation is on the Jewish farmers. In Israel, they have a lot of issues with farmers who want to graft, and they have to teach them that you can't do it so they have a lot of training for the Jewish farmers. Some listen, some don't. A non-Jew is allowed to graft, and once again, we're allowed to benefit from it, but we can't graft. We cannot mix. Just as an interesting, by the way. So we got to try and keep everything as together. Right? And so somebody just made. The GMOs actually inserts animal DNA into vegetation. It doesn't seem right to me. Yeah, I have no idea how they made this seedless watermelons. I also have no idea how. I remember growing up, someone brought us a wireless TV, and I spent hours walking around this little box. It was about this big, but it was wireless, and all it had was an antenna. And it, because if it's plugged in, I get it, but if it's not plugged in, I couldn't wrap my mind around something wireless. Now, obviously, everything's wireless, but it was just right, so seedless watermelons, wireless TVs, etc. Um, yes, that is true. A mule cannot reproduce. That's probably one of the reasons, is that you destine a mule to die childless by your actions. That is very true. A mule cannot reproduce, cannot, it's just, it's done. So I think that, Susan, I think that would be a major reason for it. Now, the in in another in another place further on in Genesis, which we'll get to, the Torah tells us that there was no grass because there was no rain yet. There was no, and only after man was created was there rain. So that seems to be a contradiction, because here it seems to be that there was grass, right? And there was Asaph, there was grass, and there was seed, there was, So one of the commentators explain is that grass did grow. It poked out from, you could see, but it didn't grow large and tall. It was just very, very small, because God was waiting for man so he can bless him with rain to make everything grow much bigger. So for it to rain without the benefit of mankind, God didn't want to do it. God wanted man to show man that there is blessings coming from heaven, but you got to be worthy. So it didn't rain until man essentially was created, and then God taught him what rain is. So yeah, it wasn't. It was patchy. It wasn't full. It wasn't complete. So man, it's a lesson for man, is that we have to ask for rain. We have to deserve rain. Rain is an incredible blessing. In fact, there's a prayer in Yom Kippur that we say that if people pray for there not to be rain because we got to travel, we don't want rain, we ask God not to listen to those that pray for no rain, because rain is a blessing. It's a tremendous blessing. Of course, too much rain creates a flood. It's not a blessing, but rain in general is a blessing. It doesn't say snow. It says rain. Snow is by far, you want it to snow, it should snow in Jersey, but that's where, nowhere else. So rain is a blessing. So anytime you see rain, realize there's a blessing. And this is what the Talmud says, if you see rain on Friday night, then you should know it's an incredibly beautiful blessing, and God gave it willingly, not begrudgingly. So if you think about it, this past Friday night, think of that rain that we had. So somebody, somewhere, is doing something really right, because there was such a strong rain, and it was on Friday night, and it was later on Friday night, and it was just an incredible rain. So rain is a blessing, but God needed man to appreciate it, which teaches, and pray for it, which teaches us another incredible lesson. You got to appreciate what you have, right? You got to appreciate what you have. If you look at something and you're not an appreciative type of person, and you say, "Oh, I hate this or this and that," when in reality it's a blessing. It's no good. It's a bad attitude, as they say. It's a bad attitude. If it's think about, before you condemn something that's happening to you, think about it. Is there a blessing in there somewhere? Are you not showing your appreciation properly? Right? Are you are you always in a negative headspace instead of being in a positive headspace? So something happens, right? You should appreciate it. It may not be everything you wanted. Appreciate what you got. That's one of the lessons that we're taught from here, is that God wanted man. It says this in Rashi. God wanted man to appreciate the rain. So if we look at the rain and say it's terrible, we're told no, don't ignore those prayers. Ignore those prayers. Have to appreciate anything that we have in life, we should not, must not take it for granted, but rather we should learn to appreciate, even if it's a small thing, right? And pray that negative things keep away from true negative things, but don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Pardon the pun. We should recognize the good in our lives. So vastly, vastly important. Any questions? Now's a good time. It does say that if it rains on your wedding day, it's supposed to be a sign of blessing. It's supposed to be a sign of good luck. Somebody just wrote it rained on both of the wedding days and didn't feel like good luck then. Yeah, I hear it. Who knows God's ways? But that's what they say, that rain is a siman bracha, a sign of blessing. And if it rains on your wedding, it's an absolute sign of blessing. So it didn't rain at my wedding, but where I was married with my wife, we were married on a it was a natural made like kind of lake, and there was a little walkway to this patio in the middle of the lake, and different people came, walked down the aisle into the middle of the lake, and then they said a blessing, etc. So one of the people, my brother-in-law, said a blessing. He actually fell into the lake during the wedding, and a big splash, and he came out of the water, came up on the platform, soaking wet all over, said the blessing anyway, and so somebody joked, okay, it didn't rain, but at least we got water. If you have any questions, by all means, you may contact me here, or rabbi at thechaicenter.com. You can that's another way to contact me. Now, if you wish to see previous classes, so it's thechaicenter.com/academy. This class is dedicated to Eileen's father. May we hear good news.